At the bachelor party before the wedding, Arabella Hastings kissed another man passionately in front of everyone. Seeing me, she ordered indifferently, "Find somewhere to stay tonight. I'm taking my Julian home. Go settle the bill first, then grab 2 boxes of condoms. Remember, Julian's been liking jasmine-flavored ones lately." I forced a smile. "Doing this in front of me, is that appropriate?" She scoffed. "What's inappropriate about it? Even if we're getting married, you're still just a dog my dad raised. What can you do?" The people present burst into laughter. I shook my head and turned to leave. Over the years, I'd worked for her dad, climbing step by step. She thought she had me completely cornered. But she didn't know my ambition was ruthless. I had already stripped her dad of all power half a year ago. With just a word from me, she'd immediately be left homeless. Leaving the room, I summoned Mr. Thompson, the club owner, and informed him that Arabella Hastings' future expenses would no longer be billed to the company. She would pay for everything herself. Then I called my assistant, David Miller, telling him to notify everyone about the wedding cancellation and to relay to all shareholders that I was closing the net on the Hastings family. Mr. Thompson was quick to pick up cues. He immediately instructed the front desk to bill the bottle of Lafitte Rothschild that had just been sent in. That bottle was originally a gesture to curry favor with me, ostensibly gifted to Arabella Hastings by the club owner. That woman was still canoodling with Julian Prescott in the room, unaware that from this moment on, let alone a bottle of red wine, she couldn't even afford bottled water. Even the top-tier private room they were using, which wasn't usually open to the public, had been given to her for free by other shareholders eager to please her father. Now, in his eyes, Arabella Hastings was worthless. Before I had even left the club, Mr. Thompson received a call. He immediately called several security guards, gave them a few instructions, and they hurried upstairs. That exclusive private room was no longer available to Arabella Hastings. Just as I got into my car, I saw Arabella Hastings and Julian Prescott being roughly pushed out by the security guards. "You have no money and dare come to a place like this, freeloading without checking your surroundings? Why don't you go beg?" Our boss already showed mercy out of respect for Mr. Clark. Don't make trouble disheveled. Arabella Hastings burned with shame but still maintained her spoiled heiress demeanor. "You gatekeeping lapdogs, do you know who my father is?" I couldn't help but quirk a smile. Her dad? After I usurped his power, he was just a figurehead now. Arabella Hastings saw me about to start the car and leave. Gritting her teeth, she rushed over, kicked my car door, and pointed at me, yelling angrily, "Sincere Clark, this must be your doing. How dare you mess with me? I'm going to tell my dad about this today, and make sure you learn a lesson." I remained composed. This woman was truly unbelievably stupid, still trying to use her dad to pressure me. The man who came with her spoke in a threatening tone. "Sincere Clark, after freeloading for a few years, have you forgotten whose dog you are? No matter how excessive we were, you shouldn't have embarrassed Bella in public, you know. Don't forget, if it weren't for her dad feeding you, you wouldn't be where you are today." I cast a brief glance at that man. It was Julian Prescott, the white moonlight in Arabella Hastings' heart. He had initially tricked Arabella Hastings into giving up her virginity and getting pregnant. Then, after securing a scholarship to study abroad, he demanded a large sum of money from her, left the country, and was never heard from again. Arabella Hastings eventually had an abortion and cried heartbrokenly, feeling guilty as if she had killed his child. In the past, I had constantly endured. Now I only wanted to reclaim everything that was rightfully mine. With a calm expression, I started the car, gently pressed the accelerator, and drove away. Arabella Hastings was so enraged that she picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at my car, cursing loudly, "Sincere Clark, you despicable bastard, wait and see. I'll make my dad clean house and kick out you ungrateful backstabber." Chapter 2:2. Ungrateful? How laughable. For so many years, outsiders thought Frederick Hastings was heavily relying on me. But they didn't know that back then, he started out in the underworld and was pursued by enemies. It was my father, who valued brotherhood above all, who protected him. As a result, my father and mother died in a traffic accident. He then conveniently took over my family's company under the pretense of temporarily helping manage it. Perhaps feeling some guilt, he took me in as a foster son. The first time I saw Arabella Hastings at what used to be my family's mansion, she had a haughty, superior air about her. They say if it weren't for my dad, you'd be a stray dog on the street. My dad always listens to me, so starting today, if you're my dog, you won't have to wander. That day, Frederick Hastings chuckled, scolded her briefly, and told me Arabella Hastings was spoiled rotten and that children's words were harmless. From that day on, my home became their home. No matter where we were, Arabella Hastings never called me by my name, she just called me lapdog. She ordered me around to do this and that, and if I didn't obey, she'd spread rumors everywhere, leading others to isolate and bully me. She would even force me to film videos of myself groveling an apology to her, then show them to me like a form of brainwashing whenever I asked for forgiveness, branding me with shame over and over, proving that she was always right. After junior high, she became even more overbearing, using her abuse of me as something to show off to her classmates. One time during lunch in the school cafeteria, she forced me to eat rice mixed with dog feces, joking with other students that dogs loved eating that stuff. When I refused, she had her hangers on strip me naked and leave my clothes on the school field. A crowd gathered around me filming videos. When Frederick Hastings found out about it, he only gave her a perfunctory scolding and couldn't be bothered to say anything comforting to me. Finally, enduring all the pressure, I secretly worked hard and got accepted into a top provincial high school. But because she said she needed someone to wait on her, I was made to attend a third-rate college. Not only did I have to wash her clothes and buy her meals, but I also had to book hotels for her trysts with Julian in advance every time and buy their condoms. Even during her recovery after the abortion, I had to wait on her hand and foot. After graduation, Frederick Hastings placed me in the company, promoting me steadily. Only I knew that with each step up, my hands grew stained with invisible blood, clearing away anything unfavorable to Arabella Hastings for Frederick Hastings. He was using me to pave the way for Arabella Hastings, waiting for her to have her fill of fun so he could continue to hold on to my family's company. But it was also thanks to Arabella Hastings only thinking about eating, drinking, and partying all day, or reigniting things with her Julian. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to take advantage of the weakness in a company Frederick Hastings had managed for so many years. Returning home, I had just finished a video conference in my study when Arabella Hastings arrived, bringing Julian with her. She shoved the study door open and pointed at me, yelling angrily, "Sincere Clark, how dare you show your face back here?" Calmly, I closed my laptop, glanced at her, and smiled faintly. This is my house. Where else would I go? This mansion was nominally gifted to Arabella Hastings by a developer who heard we were getting married, wanting to befriend me. The property deed was actually in my name. Why isn't anyone answering my dad's phone? Where is he? Why did you stop my cards? I replied casually, "The chairman is abroad scouting projects." In reality, he was in no mood for scouting projects. He had long ago been imprisoned in a foreign sanatorium by people I arranged. Arabella Hastings glared at me, eyes splitting with rage, then suddenly scoffed, "No wonder you're acting so arrogant. Don't think you can run wild just because my dad isn't here with that." She slammed 2 documents onto my desk. Lowering my gaze, I scanned them. It was a dismissal letter. Due to poor operational management, Sincere Clark's position as general manager in our company is hereby terminated with immediate effect, and he will not be rehired. The date at the top was blank, but Frederick Hastings had already signed it. Judging by the handwriting, it was from a long time ago. It seemed Frederick Hastings had been prepared all along, ready to throw me overboard with trumped-up charges after using me. Indeed, he had only ever treated me like a dog to be raised from the beginning. Arabella Hastings sneered. "Originally, I planned to humiliate you in public at the company anniversary celebration tomorrow, but the more I look at you, the sicker I feel. If you don't want me to post this online for everyone to see right now, then just obediently continue being a good dog. Starting today, Julian is moving in, and from now on, you'll serve him as the master of this house, Julian Prescott. Standing nearby with a smug, affected expression, spoke up. My apologies, I just got back to the country and am still unfamiliar with things. I only told Bella I'd stay temporarily for a while. I didn't expect it to be like this. I looked at him calmly and smiled faintly. Standing up, I extended my hand towards him. Welcome, Chapter 3. 3. He thought I was conceding, and his smile grew smugger as he extended his hand to shake mine. I suddenly withdrew my hand. The rent is $100,000 USD a month, with a minimum lease of 1 year. Guest bedrooms are not for rent. I'll have the storage room in the basement cleared out immediately. If you settle the full amount today, you can move in. Julian Prescott's unretracted smile froze on his face. Arabella Hastings' face flushed completely red. Sincere Clark, how dare you ask Julian for money? I leaned back in my chair, lazily crossing my legs. Is there a problem with me renting out my own house? Julian Prescott put on a show. Ah, Jen, shut up. Are we close? He faltered, then paused. Sincere Clark, don't be ungrateful. I know you're jealous of me, but don't forget about that dismissal letter. If Bella announces it publicly at the celebration tomorrow, you'll likely look even worse. Thanks for the reminder. I picked up a mirror from the desk and checked my face. It's time to get a new stylist. I need to show my best side at the reception tomorrow. He stood blankly, mouth agape, unable to speak for a long time. Red-faced, Arabella Hastings slammed her hand on the desk. Sincere Clark, do you think being the general manager at the company actually gives you status and standing? I don't mind telling you, my dad taking you in, promoting you, and even marrying me off to you, was nothing more than a facade to win over people and keep the company firmly in his hands. Now your family's company belongs to the Hastings, and you're completely useless to us. I gave her a look of agreement. I'd always known that. She sneered. Since you won't take the easy way and insist on the hard one, just wait until you're penniless and begging on the streets now. Get out of my house this instant. I couldn't help but chuckle. It was them who would be rolling out of this house. What are you laughing at? Arabella Hastings was about to have another outburst, but I interrupted her calmly. If you can't afford the rent, I'm going to have supper. Please leave. Julian Prescott scoffed, seizing the opportunity to fan the flames. Sincere Clark, the words are clear enough. Why court disaster? Do you really need Bella to have someone beat you up before you're satisfied? Arabella Hastings immediately turned and ordered the household staff standing outside the door, call all the security guards, tell them to bring their gear. The household staff remained expressionless, motionless. Arabella Hastings was stunned for a moment. Just as she was about to explode, I spoke in time. Don't bother. How about I call them for you? I only gave the household staff a glance, and she immediately moved. A minute later, over a dozen security guards jogged over swiftly. Sincere Clark, are you trying to rebel? Arabella Hastings pointed at me, gritting her teeth. I watched her with a smile. What? Still planning to stay for supper? Seeing the security guards were all holding batons, Julian Prescott broke out in a cold sweat. He pulled at Arabella Hastings, who was still bristling, and whispered a reminder. Bella, don't be impulsive. Anyway, we still have your dad's signed dismissal letter. We can ruin his reputation at the reception tomorrow. Arabella Hastings looked at me as if she wanted to devour me. You just wait. I'll make you pay 10 times over for what happened today. I'll make you kneel and beg me, crying. Chapter 4:4. The next day, while waiting for the elevator at the hotel hosting the celebration, I happened upon Arabella Hastings, who had come with Julian Prescott. Seeing me, she wore a look of absolute triumph. Just then, my assistant David Miller, who had pressed the elevator button, stepped aside respectfully, preparing to let me enter. But Arabella Hastings rushed forward, stopped in front of my assistant, and raised her hand, hitting her hard across the face. Are you blind? Couldn't you see I was still here? Can't tell the difference between a master and a dog, huh? Don't forget whose rice you're eating. My assistant, covering her face, glanced at me, suppressing her anger. I'm sorry, Miss Hastings. Please go ahead. Arabella Hastings scoffed, then swung her hand again, delivering another hard slap. That slap is to make sure you remember next time. Then she turned and gave me a provocative side glance. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're worthy of riding the same elevator as me? Get this straight, our family never lacks for dogs like you. Today, I'm making you a stray mutt. Having said that, she intimately linked arms with Julian Prescott and sashayed into the elevator. At the celebration venue, all the company employees, senior management, and shareholders were present. Seeing Frederick Hastings' seat empty, Arabella Hastings strutted over and plopped herself down in it, then had Julian Prescott sit directly next to her in my seat. Seeing I had arrived, she adopted a nonchalant attitude and instructed a junior employee, "Go get a small stool and have Sincere Clark sit at my feet." The junior employee looked distressed. All the senior management and shareholders watched her with grim expressions. The vice president beside me immediately stood up and offered me his seat. After I sat down, Arabella Hastings glared at him, her tone threatening. "After I deal with you, I'll deal with the rest of these ingrates." One by one I sneered. Likely, she wouldn't get the chance. Seeing I was seated, the host on stage announced the start of the celebration. The first item on the agenda was for me to give a speech, mainly detailing the company's achievements over the past year. In the first quarter, I led the company in adjusting its business direction, adding online marketing services. Through collaborations with over 70 accounts with millions of followers, we achieved the revenue target for the entire first half of last year, with total profits of $180 million USD. In the second quarter, we began investing in building our own exclusive IPs, further reducing costs. Profits grew by 11.3% compared to the first quarter. Enough. Arabella Hastings suddenly interrupted me from the audience with a look of disdain. "Stop patting yourself on the back here. Without my dad's full support, could you have achieved any of this? I'm telling you, if we wanted, anyone else could have done the same." She stood up, snatched the microphone from the host below the stage, and pulled Julian Prescott up with her. "Today, I have an announcement. My dad received reports long ago that Sincere Clark abused his power for personal gain, embezzled company funds, and sold company secrets to competitors during his tenure. However, considering the significant contributions he made to the company, my dad didn't want to blow things out of proportion. Therefore, Sincere Clark's position as general manager is hereby terminated, and he will never be rehired. His position will be provisionally filled by Julian Prescott." The employees in the audience stirred restlessly, but the company's senior management and shareholders remained impassive. Julian Prescott glanced at me with a look of triumph, then took the microphone as if giving an acceptance speech. "Although he made mistakes, I still want to thank Sincere Clark for everything he's done for the company. Please rest assured, with me leading you from now on, we will definitely take the company to new heights." I smiled faintly. He wasn't wrong. For years I had worked tirelessly for the company, finally building it to its current scale with great difficulty. The Hastings father and daughter were enjoying the ill-gotten riches without recognizing the truth, and they were still insulting me like a dog. Arabella Hastings gave me a cold glance, then turned and said softly to Julian Prescott, "Julian, why thank him? The company would have flourished just the same without him. Besides, I feel much more at ease having it in your hands now." Julian Prescott grinned from ear to ear. "Bella, I will never disappoint the trust you and Mr. Hastings have placed in me. From now on, I'll stand with the company through thick and thin, sharing hardships and joys with you." Hearing his words, I couldn't help but laugh. Thank goodness for that dismissal letter. You can still laugh at a time like this. Should I say you have a good attitude, or are you just struggling in desperation? Arabella Hastings' laughter was wild. I remained calm, speaking into the microphone. "The company has been continuously losing money since late August. As of now, preliminary estimates show a loss of $800 million USD. In addition to funds advanced by agents and bank loans, the Social Security and wages for the employees here are also currently in arrears. The chairman didn't go abroad for scouting, he ran off. As I finished speaking, Arabella Hastings and Julian Prescott both froze, their smiles cemented on their faces. I smiled faintly. But it's all right now. With Ms. Hastings here, and having brought a new general manager, the employees' wages and the outstanding debts now have a solution. I believe with the two of you, the company will surely be brought back to life. Chapter 5:5. A sudden surge of questions erupted from the audience like a tidal wave. Ms. Hastings, your dad took our hard-earned money and ran off to enjoy himself abroad. You're not leaving too, are you? You have to give us an explanation today. When exactly are you going to pay us our hard-earned money if you don't? Give us an explanation. You're not leaving today. Amidst the rising clamor, Arabella Hastings completely lost her arrogant demeanor. Sincere Clark. She stumbled half a step forward, her fingertips trembling so hard she could barely point. How could you mess up the company like this? My dad trusted you so much, and this is how you repay him. Her voice was laced with a sob, but it wasn't remorse. It was panic after her sense of superiority was suddenly shattered. I looked at her flushed face, remembering the same condescending expression she wore when she forced me to eat rice mixed with dog feces back then. At this moment, I merely smoothed the wrinkles on my suit, my tone light and casual. I did my best to make money for your family, but there was nothing else I could do. My abilities are limited. Fortunately, Mr. Prescott is here. He can surely turn things around. Julian Prescott gritted his back teeth hard, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. The veins on his forehead pulsed with the employees' insistent questions from below the stage. This man, who thought he was about to take over a mountain of gold, only now saw that he had stepped into a bottomless swamp. The company's initial profits were merely a facade for Frederick Hastings. This was meant to make him lower his guard, partnering secretly with the new company I had founded, concealing my goal of shifting the group's main operations to my new company. Frederick Hastings still thought I was completely under his control, even plotting to discard me after I finished paving the way for his daughter. But he didn't know that under my operations, group investments were pouring furiously into my new company with no returns. In fact, what I did was easy to hide from Frederick Hastings, but very difficult to hide from the other shareholders and company executives. However, I could offer them more than Frederick Hastings could, so they naturally boarded my ship. In fact, the new company was founded together with several other shareholders. Seeing that Arabella Hastings remained silent, the commotion below the stage grew more intense. Several young employees had already begun pushing the tables and chairs in the front row. Arabella Hastings looked at Julian Prescott in a panic. Julian, what do we do? You're the group's general manager now. Quickly think of something. Her voice had a pleading, tearful quality, but none of her usual confidence remained. Julian Prescott took a deep breath, his shoulders beneath the suit jacket tensing into stiff lines. He snatched the microphone, almost pulling the connecting wire taut, and his voice cracked as he yelled at the crowd below. Quiet down. Everyone, the company has been operating for so many years. Even if it goes bankrupt, with the fixed assets plus Chairman Hastings and Ms. Hastings shares, everyone's wages will certainly be paid out. You want to sell the company? And sell my dad's and my shares? Arabella Hastings lunged, grabbing his arm fiercely, her fingernails almost digging into his flesh. Julian Prescott quickly glanced at the crowd below who were watching him intently. He leaned in and whispered next to her ear, Bella, the company is a mess right now, beyond saving even for a miracle worker. We might as well cut our losses. With all these fixed assets plus the shares, not only can we pay off the debts, but you could still be worth over 100 million USD. I'll be with you then to make a comeback. Rest assured, I'm here. Hearing Julian Prescott say this, Arabella Hastings immediately breathed a sigh of relief. I must say, Julian Prescott's mind worked quite fast. I gave him an appreciative glance. There's already a company CEO who's interested in acquiring it. He's also here at the event. I paused deliberately, watching Arabella Hastings' nerves instantly tighten. The plan was originally to begin the handover after the anniversary celebration concluded. You idiot! Arabella Hastings stamped her heels and rushed over. Why didn't you say so sooner? Quickly. Invite the person up here to discuss it openly in front of everyone. It'll be a good explanation for them. I motioned for my assistant to bring a chair and slowly sat down under everyone's gaze. The sound of my leather shoes scraping the floor was remarkably clear. Arabella Hastings stared at my crossed legs, trembling with rage. You have the nerve to sit there, didn't you hear me? I lightly shook the document in my hand. Didn't you want to discuss the acquisition? Chapter 6. 6. Arabella Hastings froze for a moment, then immediately reacted, pointing at me in a furious rage. I knew something was off because you, someone who wouldn't even dare breathe after getting slapped before, dared challenge me. Turns out you're a traitor, double, crossing us and finding a new master. Just a dog, no matter where you go. She crossed her arms over her chest, looking down at me with a superior air. Since you're the one here, tell your master that if they want to acquire our group, the price is non-negotiable, $1 billion USD. I looked at her calmly and nodded. We've preliminarily estimated the group's available fixed assets and your and the chairman's shares. The approximate value is $1,250 million USD. Julian Prescott heard me, grabbed Arabella Hastings' hand, his face excited. Bella, see? I told you after paying off the debts we'll still have several $100 million left, more than enough for us to make a comeback. Arabella Hastings gave him a grateful look, then turned back to me, her tone icy. I don't want to waste any more breath on you. Seeing you any longer makes me sick. I'm waiving the $50 million USD remainder, but I have one condition. I was suddenly interested. Let's hear it. Her eyes looked as if she wanted to tear me apart and swallow me whole. You will kneel down right now and lick my shoe clean, then mimic a dog barking 3 times and yell, I am the Hastings dog. I froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. I'm afraid I can't do that. Arabella Hastings sneered. Whether you can or not isn't up to you. $50 million USD for a dog bark from you. I don't believe your new master can't figure out that trade. I looked at her calmly. I doubt you can even come up with $50 million USD yourself. She laughed in exasperation. You're looking down on me? I'll make you cry when you see the coffin bring out the $1,250 million contract. The shareholders are all here. They can sign right now. The shareholders in the audience watched her like she was an idiot. I couldn't help but laugh. Who said we were going to pay that much? Arabella Hastings hadn't processed it yet when I smiled and continued. What I just stated was just a preliminary estimate. But after all, they're second-hand assets. We've calculated it. They're worth only $50 million USD, just enough for you to cover all the employees' wages and Social Security payments. Arabella Hastings immediately exploded in rage upon hearing this. Sincere Clark. Are you playing games with me? Why don't you just rob us? You can't afford it, yet you're putting on airs here talking to me like this. Get lost right now. You're not the only buyer out there. Julian Prescott couldn't stand it anymore either. Sincere Clark, I thought you'd found some impressive master to follow. Looks like it wasn't even as comfortable as being a dog in the Hastings family. How can you even say that with a straight face? I looked at him indifferently. And then, he scoffed. Looking at your smug expression from getting ahead makes me sick. Do you really think that even if the Hastings are bankrupt, they still have money you couldn't earn in several lifetimes? You just wait. Sooner or later you'll come crawling back to us, crying and begging. Dropping those words, he grabbed Arabella Hastings' hand and tried to leave. I spoke calmly. What? Trying to escape? They stopped in their tracks, a flicker of guilt flashing across their faces. What nonsense are you talking about? We're just going to find a genuinely interested buyer to solve the problem quickly, I sneered. The group isn't the Hastings' personal domain. Whether it gets sold or not depends on the other shareholders' decisions. Arabella Hastings said mockingly, Sincere Clark, are you out of your mind? They're sitting right there below us. They heard everything we just said. Ask them who would agree. Calmly, I pulled out another document and handed it to Arabella Hastings. They've all signed it already. Only yours is missing. Chapter 7:7. Arabella Hastings whirled around violently, her high heels scraping the floor with a shrill sound. Her finger trembled as she pointed at the shareholders in the audience, veins bulging on her neck. "Have you lost your minds? How dare you sign such a predatory contract?" Mid-sentence, she suddenly realized. She turned back, looking at me with disbelief. "All right, Sincere Clark, so you colluded with them to betray us from within. You're all ungrateful backstabbers." I calmly nodded at her, my expression sincere. "What can you do about it?" Every shareholder in the new company would get a piece of the pie. Acquiring the group at a low price was akin to putting the company's seal into their own pockets. If they didn't agree, they'd truly be idiots. Arabella Hastings suddenly turned into a shrew, shouting hysterically, "Bastards, don't get ahead of yourselves. My dad is the largest shareholder as long as he doesn't agree. Everything you do is pointless." Although she was still struggling desperately, by now Julian Prescott had fully grasped the situation. His Adam's apple bobbed twice, completely devoid of his earlier confidence. Watching Arabella Hastings, I tapped my forehead. "Right, you reminded me, I almost forgot." Saying that, I produced a power of attorney document. This is what the chairman gave me before he ran off. He said if someone could acquire the company and I was in charge of handling it, he would agree to it without exception. He also said this was the only way he could help you, and for the rest, you're on your own. This power of attorney was something I had arranged for Frederick Hastings, who was far away abroad, to sign after applying some pressure on him. Arabella Hastings lunged forward and snatched the paper, her knuckles white. After looking at it, her face turned deathly pale, and she stood blankly. I glanced at the employees in the audience. Although it's not much money, at least it can clear the employees' debts. Surely you don't mean you don't want to pay them? As I finished speaking, the employees in the front rows suddenly overturned their chairs. Over a dozen people surged onto the stage, their dress shoes stomping, making the floor tremble. "Your dad took our hard-earned money and is hiding abroad, living the high life. What are we supposed to do? Exactly, you have to give us the money today. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite, right? A daughter paying her father's debts is only right and proper. If you don't pay, we'll sell you. You'd better think this through." Arabella Hastings was utterly terrified and stumbled backward, her high heels slipping. She bumped against the podium, clutching Julian Prescott's arm tightly, her fingernails digging almost into his flesh. "Julian, what do we do now? Quickly, think of a way for us to get out of this." Julian Prescott's Adam's apple bobbed, and a large patch of sweat bled through the back of his suit jacket. He lowered his voice. "Bella, at this point, 50 million is 50 million. Let's sign the contract as a show for these people. Once the money is transferred, we can just stall worst case." Arabella Hastings bit her lip, her eyes unwilling, but seeing the increasingly furious crowd, she had no choice but to nod in agreement. Seeing this, I had my assistant calm the employees down. I took out the contract I had prepared earlier and handed it to Arabella Hastings with a smile. Arabella Hastings took the contract while glaring at me fiercely. "Sincere Clark, what do you have to be so smug about? Even though I'm down and out, I'm still better off than you, who has to keep being a dog for someone else saying this." She opened the contract, ready to sign. But then she suddenly froze. She unconsciously looked up at me, disbelief in her eyes. You're the representative for Party A?" Chapter 8:8. Arabella Hastings's pupils constricted violently. Her entire face drained of color in just a few seconds. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Even with her slow reactions, she could clearly understand her situation now. She glanced at the shareholders' indifferent expressions below the stage and the angry employees gathering around her. Her Adam's apple bobbed uncontrollably. Suddenly, she lunged and grabbed the hem of my suit jacket. Mr. Clark, I apologize for what happened before. I was wrong. Please, if nothing else, consider that my dad raised you and I was there with you for so long. Please be lenient this time, forgive me." "You reminded me, I almost forgot," I said, lowering my gaze to look at her fingers with their elaborate manicures. I suddenly remembered the year I was 12, when she forced me to kneel on broken glass and crushed the birthday cake I was holding with her high heel. Did you really not know what kind of life I lived since I was a child? Arabella Hastings' eyelashes fluttered frantically. She didn't dare meet my gaze. Then if you just promise to let me go, I'll do anything. I can even marry you. I chuckled softly, my gaze sweeping over Julian Prescott's gloomy face. Marry me? A used-up piece of goods who's been played with by everyone. You think you're worthy? Sincere Clark, don't go too far. Arabella Hastings panicked and suddenly flared up again, red-faced. I've already humbled myself to you. What more do you want? Enough? Julian Prescott suddenly stepped forward and grabbed her wrist, veins bulging beneath his suit cuff. Bella, what use is it begging him now? Worst case, we sign the contract and I'll find a way to get us out of this. As long as we still have this money, we'll have our day to turn things around. He deliberately lowered his voice at the end of his sentence, but I knew he only cared about the money in Arabella Hastings' hands. Julian Prescott's words reassured Arabella Hastings. She no longer hesitated and signed the contract directly. After checking it was correct, I instructed my assistant to arrange the fund transfer. Arabella Hastings visibly relaxed. She immediately straightened her back, forcing herself to appear calm as she faced the employees below. Everyone, don't worry. It takes some time for such a large sum to be credited. As soon as the money arrives, I will immediately have the company's finance department transfer it to each of you individually. Please go back and wait patiently for now. Before she could finish speaking, a sharp ding sound interrupted. It was a message notification. Julian Prescott almost eagerly leaned closer and whispered a reminder. Bella, the money should be here. Quick, check. Arabella Hastings' fingers froze on the phone screen. Her cheeks, which had been flushed with a sickly kind of redness, instantly turned paper white. She snapped her head up, her eyes bloodshot. Sincere Clark, where's my money? You tricked me, that's not my concern, I said, calmly adjusting my cufflink. It's your dad's fault for borrowing so much from the bank. Since he can't pay it back now, he's been on the list of defaulters for a while. I expect the bank just seized the funds directly. But you don't need to worry too much. At least he owes the bank less now. Arabella Hastings stumbled backward, her high heel slipping on the floor, nearly making her fall. The employees below, who had quieted down, suddenly erupted. Arabella Hastings, what now? You can't give us the money today, can you? We don't care if you signed for the bank's money or not. In short, if you don't give us our money today, don't even think about leaving. Looking at the incensed employees, Arabella Hastings' legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the floor. At this point, Julian Prescott saw there was nothing more to gain, and was about to look for a chance to slip away, but Arabella Hastings lunged and grabbed his leg. Julian, what do we do now? Quickly, think of something. I only did this because I listened to you. What we? Julian Prescott violently shook her hand off, his eyes filled with disgust, his true nature fully revealed. Don't lump me with you. We were sex buddies at most. This is your family's business. What does it have to do with me? Julian, what are you saying? Didn't we agree? Let go. Julian Prescott's voice was filled with suppressed rage. Agree on what? Did you actually believe me when I said it casually? Idiot, if your family didn't have a bit of money, do you think I'd have been interested in an arrogant, overbearing heiress like you? From now on, I have absolutely nothing to do with you. Arabella Hastings was completely devastated. She slumped bonelessly onto the ground as if her muscles and bones had been removed. Julian Prescott sneered and turned to leave. I looked at him and spoke calmly. Mr. Prescott, did I say you could leave? Chapter 9. Hearing my words, the employees reacted. Several people came forward and surrounded Julian Prescott. Julian Prescott turned back, his tone icy. Sincere Clark, your feud is with Arabella Hastings and her family. You've achieved your goal now. What does it have to do with me just because I slept with Arabella Hastings? You want to take revenge on me? We're all adults. Can't you get over something like this? I looked at Julian Prescott's malicious expression and smiled faintly. Your connection to my feud with the Hastings family is indeed minimal. However, you are the group's new general manager, and I've spent many years with these employees and feel a connection to them. Is there a problem with me collecting the debt for them? The employees became even more agitated hearing my words. Right, Mr. Clark is right. Our matter isn't settled yet, and you can't run off exactly if you run. Who do we go to? You need to be responsible for us. Julian Prescott's face turned green. He glared at me, grinding his teeth. Nonsense, whatever. Arabella Hastings owed has absolutely nothing to do with me. I have no money. I'm not being the general manager anymore. I chuckled softly. No money? That can't be right. I remember the day you returned. You said you weren't used to taking public transportation here. Arabella Hastings bought you a Ferrari 488 outright, totaling over $6 million USD with options. And that Patek Philippe watch on your wrist, if I recall correctly. Arabella Hastings bought it for you before you went to study abroad that year, didn't she? It was over 20 million USD at the time, and it might even be worth more now. Also, every year for your birthday, including Valentine's Day and the Chixie Festival, Arabella Hastings would transfer $1,314,520 to your account. I haven't misspoken, have I? How can you say you have no money? All of this added together should be more than enough to pay the employees' wages, don't you think? Arabella Hastings, who had been completely desperate, suddenly her eyes lit up upon hearing what I said. Like someone who had finally found a lifeline, she lunged forward and clung tightly to Julian Prescott, refusing to let go. Sincere is right, Julian. Return all those things to me, Julian Prescott cursed loudly while struggling to break free. Slut, let go of me. Those are all my things, don't even think about making me give them back. Arabella Hastings snapped. You heartless traitor, I gave you my whole heart, willing to pluck the stars for you. And now that I'm in trouble, you're just going to walk away? If you don't pay me back today, we'll both go down together, having finally seen a glimmer of hope. How could Arabella Hastings possibly give up so easily? The two who were once so inextricably intertwined in their love were now entangled in a desperate fight. I watched the back and forth between them with interest. Let go Julian Prescott kneed Arabella Hastings in the abdomen. She staggered back 2 steps, but her eyes remained fixed fiercely on Julian Prescott, as if she wanted to slice him into 1,000 pieces. Julian Prescott took the chance to straighten his crooked collar, lifting his chin between gasps. Crazy woman before the words were out. Arabella Hastings suddenly lunged forward, her hands clutching his neck tightly. The two rolled and wrestled on the ground. Julian Prescott's tie became wrapped around Arabella Hastings' neck at some point, tightening with their movements. His own shirt was completely undone, his chest covered in scratches. Arabella Hastings frantically yelled at the employees, "Brothers and sisters, quickly, help me, he has money on him, help me get it back, and it's all yours." Hearing there was money, the employees swarmed forward without hesitation. Soon, Julian Prescott, beaten into a pulp, had no strength left to resist. Arabella Hastings gave him another brutal kick in the groin, unable to stop cursing. "You damn jerk, I was sincere with you, but you just used me for sex. I even thought you were someone I could entrust my life to. I must have been blind, pay back the money." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. It truly is that the deeper the love for someone, the deeper the hatred will be. 10. I completely lost interest in watching any further. I stood up, took the contract, and walked out of the hall with my assistant. Later, I heard that Julian Prescott eventually surrendered everything, but because he had squandered a significant amount, he was still short by 500,000 USD. Arabella Hastings immediately filed a lawsuit against him, eventually winning the case and successfully transferring the 500,000 USD debt still owed to the employees onto Julian Prescott. The employees who hadn't received their money yet, relentless, pursued Julian Prescott, forcing him to sell his parents' old house, but he was still 100,000 USD short. His father died from anger over the situation, tragically without even money for a coffin. Even so, those who hadn't been paid didn't leave him alone, driving him almost to madness. He ended up robbing a jewelry store. When discovered, he immediately took a passerby hostage and was ultimately shot and killed on the spot. The affair caused a huge sensation, but the employees who still hadn't received their money suffered greatly, becoming a temporary focus of public attention. I seized the opportunity to step forward. I voluntarily offered to cover the wages owed to those old employees and even arranged positions for them in my company. This garnered widespread praise from society, 100,000 USD for a good reputation, and some loyal employees was an absolute steal. After finishing a business dinner, I was driven home. Chatting with my driver, Walter Green, the subject of Julian Prescott came up again. He suddenly became curious. "Mr. Clark, Julian Prescott got what he deserved, but what happened to Arabella Hastings? It's like she vanished off the face of the earth." I smiled without speaking. Returning to the mansion, the moment the motion sensor light in the foyer turned on, a soft rustling sound of leather scraping against the ground came from the shadows. Arabella Hastings, wearing a diamond-studded dog collar around her neck, quickly crawled forward on all fours. Her nails, once meticulously cared for, were now caked with dirt. She offered a fawning smile uglier than a cry. "Mr. Clark." Her throat was so hoarse she could barely form full syllables. Her scarlet tongue suddenly darted out, trembling slightly as it licked the wine stain from my leather shoe. A slight click sounded as her canine tooth brushed against the shoe's metal trim. She quickly rubbed her forehead against my ankle. "You're back. I've warmed the bed for you." I looked down at her, sneering. Lifting my foot, I kicked her away. Arabella Hastings fell heavily onto the floor but didn't even dare cry out in pain. She scrambled back immediately, desperate to please. "Good. You're a good dog." The once haughty heiress of the Hastings family was now just an ant groveling at my feet. End of story.